Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is Apostle Crystal Lee. I'm excited to be here with you this morning. Welcome to those that are coming into the room. Good morning. I see Elder Vicky in the room. My sister, Prophet Marlise, is here this morning. We are thankful for your presence. I see Pastor Shauna in the room. Good morning. Come on in. Come on in the room. That used to be my thing. I haven't said that in a long time. That came on right on out. Come on in the room. Absolutely. Come on in. Good morning, Prophet Marlise. There she is. All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It is a beautiful day in the Kinetic neighborhood. Is that right?
Yes, 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 yes.
We give glory to Yah this morning for his goodness and his mercy, for keeping us, for covering us, for protecting us, and for giving us the wisdom that we need for the day. As we ask him, he reveals it to us, and the word says he doesn't hold anything back. So we're expecting even that this morning. We're expecting his wisdom this morning to give us the direction that we need for the thing that we are doing. 111 days of kinetic prayer. We are in, I guess this is, what you would call the ninth version of A New Breed is Born, the ninth conversation. And we're still in prophetic cognition. We're in part 2 of that. We need to still unpack a little bit of that today. So we're going to take some time to do that and just really see what the Father wants to say to us this morning. We're in day 71 of the prayer, day 65 of the fast. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a shift in that area. And I'm pretty excited about that. Father has some things he wants to do with us and through us. And so he's positioning us for that. It's always about position for him. It's always about position. And while men are arguing about natural position, he's dealing with spiritual position, right? We know that it's not just about what it looks like on the outside, but what it is on the inside. That's what's really defining what a thing is, what it is by its nature, what it really is on the inside is the operation of it. It is the nature of it. It is what it is. That's what that's where that phrase for me comes from. It is what it is. Okay, well, you ever been somewhere and you just realize something, oh, this is what it is. I mean, it's no way around that. I don't care what it looked like. I don't care what kind of costume it's wearing. This is what it is. My sister sent me something yesterday. Man, that video tripped me out, sis. I said, wait a minute. What's this thing doing right here? All right. It still was what it was, but it was trying to behave like something else. I was like, wait a minute. Fiercely behaving like something else. I'm like, oh my God, this is serious. And we live in that time. We live in that day where things are pretending to be something other than. They're putting on the false face of something, but internally, at the depth or at the core of what it is, that's what it is, Prophet Marlise, you want to share some things? Open this up. I know you said you had a couple more things you could have shared yesterday in the way of giving us a preview, or I should say a overview of what we've been talking about in this time of the new breed. Just kind of take about 5 minutes and deal with an overview. You guys, I pray that you have your notepads out and your pens out because it's a lot easier to jot stuff down and even to jot down the time that it was spoken while you're on the live versus I'm going to go back and re-listen to it, right? That's great. You can go back and re-listen to it because it is only an hour and 11 minutes long, which is unusual for us. But, the Father has graced us to be able to accomplish this. And even when I kind of lost my way for a minute, somebody that I poured into in another season poured back into me what I gave to them. And so I got right back on task here. And we've been very consistent in this 1 hour and 11 minutes. Okay. So it is easy for you to go back, but I want you to know that when you're hearing something, it's easier to jot it down because it's something that was sparked in that hearing. So just jot that thing down, the time on the video that it was, and then whatever else the Father says about that thing. Yeah, because it's going to help you remember a space that you were in when you heard the thing that you heard, you know. Something about writing just does that. It causes a thing to be cemented or firmly affixed to the psyche. It creates neural pathways that just hearing or seeing a thing doesn't create. Prophet Marlise, you want to do an overview, sister? And greet the people this morning?
Amen. Good morning. Good morning. Um, I truly hope everyone is doing better than good, better than blessed, better than, I don't know how better blessed can be, but unless you double blessed, triple blessed. But today is a good day. We have been talking about quite a bit, and to add to what I was saying on yesterday, um, we were talking about sound and vibration, frequencies. And we know that even in Genesis, we know that Yah spoke first, there was a sound. We were talking about even being careful and mindful of how we speak in this season, but we should be careful of that anyway. You know, in one season they were saying you be careful about what you speak. You'll have it, prophet. You speak what you have. You want, you're gonna get. And so we do know that just casual conversation is equivalent to prayer. Because as casual conversation takes place, I'm not sure about you all, but for me, I've experienced those things we were talking about manifest. So we talk about kinetic prayer. Kinetic prayer is a little bit different than the standard prayer that, we, the church, is used to. Because everything about us is a form of worship or prayer. From our breath to our eye blinks to the posture to the attitude to the things that we do, how we do them, when we do them, where we do them, all of that. And it could determine whether we get an answer or whether we not, whether we sit there and we're still lingering. In kinetic prayer, when you got two or more that's gathered, you're going to have that kinetic prayer intensified. So we were talking about, the sound, vibrations. Some people talk and say, oh, the vibe, but it is the frequency. People say, oh, you're high frequency, low frequencies. Yes, because even in the mind and how the mind is triggered, there's electricity in the brain that takes place and it triggers when you speak, when you think, when there's a conversation, when there is things that are being recorded by the brain, when there's conversations in the mind, there is a form of electricity activity. Even down to when the body has an experience separate of the brain will still activate. And so those are some of the things that we were talking about and how you really, even how you wake up in the morning. Some people say, I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. And and we talk about that. Why would you not want to be a son of the God that is light, that lights a path, that brightens a day? How can you be son of darkness. It doesn't fit. You can't work really. Even though we in this industrial complex of this world will work you 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, if you will allow it. They will get away with it. And we talked about that misuse, following into the traps of the world, traps of certain things, being mindful of those things. And knowing if you do fall, you don't have to stay there. You can come out. So these are things that we were talking about throughout this time, all the way up until now. And yes, that's right. Two or more gather. Yes, apostle. And so we've had some moments. We had quite a few moments. Amen. But we also have to know that we have to be focused. We have to move forward. We can't stay stagnant and get caught up in what the yesteryear is. Because you got people who live on what was done yesteryear and not even see themselves being able to do things in this year, let alone the years to come. Because there is no limit. Like the scripture says, for with God all things are possible, or nothing shall be impossible.
Mm.
So you can't even age yourself out. Some pastors and ministers and folks in the leadership position, the shepherds, they say, "Oh, I'm gonna retire at this age." You can't retire. You never retire. How you gonna retire when that's an ongoing work? Period. You may change. You may change a position or change the capacity in which you lead, but you're still responsible as a leader.
That's it.
There is no such thing as retirement because it is a way of life. It is a lifestyle. It is who he made you to be and what he made you to do.
Yeah.
Amen. So I digress.
Amen.
On that one, I will release and turn it back over to you, Apostle. Praise
Amen.
God.
Thank you, Prophet. Yeah, these reviews are really good. They help us remember some things. They help bring back, the things that we've discussed and maybe different aspects of that or different perspectives of it. You hit something and it caused me to write the two or more gathered. That thing is so important because when we look at the conversation that we've been having, when we look at David and the mighty men, when we look at the Mashiach and the disciples, when we look at Elijah and Elisha, when we look at these dynamics where there are sons that are coming together, we understand that there is a purpose, absolutely, lifetime perspective of service. There is a purpose by which they're coming together. If the purpose is not defined, then what are they really doing? It's just a gathering of what? It could be just a gathering of folly without the purpose defined. Whatever we do when we come here, we just do. But most things are defined. Even the clubs have a definition to what you do when you come here. So what is it that we do when sons come together? What is the purpose of the coming together? I'm finding it a lot in this season that a lot of times people are just simply coming together and just hearing something that they've already heard before, or they're doing what is the normal doing. They have a specific program and they're following the specific protocol of the program that they designed for that particular environment. And what does it amount to? You know what I'm saying? Is there something that we're working on? Is there something that we're working towards? What does that look like? You know, and it made me think about the unity of things. When I think about unity, the first thing I think about is not Acts chapter 2. The first thing I think about when I think about unity is always Genesis chapter 11. And I know somebody be like, well, why Genesis chapter 11? Because it's something that the Father said um, in that time that was just really unimaginable to me. He said, if I don't stop them from doing what they're doing, then nothing they imagine will be unable to be accomplished by them. Like anything that comes that they can form the image in their mind for, they could bring it to pass. Why? Because they're all unified in this effort. Because of their unity, they are able to perform a thing because they are unified. And even if it's the wrong thing, they're able. And so when we look at the earth and we look at what's going on in the earth, this few that rule the many concept, which, by the way, I did get that call yesterday, guys, that I was talking about when I said, if you just put me on this situation, add me to the situation, it's going to come through. So let's see how long it takes before they say this is a done deal. We're finished with it. I just have an expectation that because I'm connected to it, that it's going to have to go through, that it's going to have to no longer wait, because I'm not in the season of delay or denial. This is the season of the speaking of the vision and not the waiting of the vision. So I just believe that because I'm connected to it. And that, to some people, they might think, oh, that's arrogant. No, it's not. It's just not a place of arrogance. I don't speak of it from a place of who I am. I speak of it from a place of who he is in me. And my realization of who he is in me positions me to say the things that I say and to do the things that I do. So when we look at this unity that they had in Genesis chapter 11 to build this structure, they had the framework for it. They understood. They had defined it. They understood what their goal was. And their goal was not just the building of a tower. And when we often see tower, we're thinking of this thing that reaches the heights of the heaven as far as the structure of the thing. But this was about more than the physical structure. This wasn't about this, because you got to understand that the Tower of Babel was 3 miles long. What they were building was a portal. And I wish, Prophet Marlise, if you take the time for me real quick, go and see the length. See if you can find the dimensions for HARP. What is the dimensions, even if it's just for the machine, or if it's for the, see if you can find something on that, because I wouldn't be surprised if HARP had the audacity to be 3 miles in length, or if the tunnels or something that was related to it had the audacity to be that, because what darkness does is it builds upon itself. One of the things that I have discussed, and I'll bring that back up this morning, is I find it very challenging, the fact that darkness has the gall and the balls to keep passing from generation to generation, the mischief. You mentioned this, unified to do mischief, Pastor Shauna, that they have the audacity to pass down the spirit of the mischief that they're working on, that their bloodlines are creating, right? All in an effort to maintain their status as those that are powerful over the people, the Nike, right? All in an effort to be those that are at the forefront financially or economically. Their systems that they put in place are for them. Now, see what I believe the Father is doing in this season, and this will lead us into the whole prophetic cognition thing, is that he's reminding the sons of things that he has spoken to us in different seasons that were for us a little high. But understand, sometimes those things are forgotten because life is happening, right? And while life is happening, it seems like those things are covered up. They're no longer at the forefront of our mind. But the Father, in the hour that those things need to come up out of the ground, we're thinking that the thing is dead. Sometimes we're thinking that, it's the seed is, not viable, but it was simply dormant for the season that it was going to flourish. And so now all of a sudden, these things are coming back to mind. These things are coming back into view. And the Father had to take us out of that space where we have become beaten down, where we have become almost lifeless from the trauma of different life situations. And now he's saying, no, the seed is remaining. The seed remains there. The seed is there. Now I'm watering the seed with my word. Now I'm going to water this thing. I'm going to tell you about, I'm going to remind you of where it's located. I'm going to remind you of where it is so you can begin to pour on the water. Begin to allow your light to shine, because that's the sunshine that it needs so that it can begin to grow again, so that it can leave the dormant state and go back into the flourishing state. Because some things, listen, were flourishing for us and it just kind of died back. Some people even saw damage to their tree in the way of it being chopped down, but the word of the Lord declares, and I remember this all the time when I don't see life in an area, at the scent of water. It's a stump now, but at the scent of water. Have you ever walked up on a stump and seen stuff growing up out of the stump, seen things happening? You see little twigs coming up, and you see that's because something is in the tree that's saying, I'm going to live, I'm not going to die. The fact that I still have roots says that I can still have shoots. Listen, some things got to be dried up at the roots, but I'm telling you that the things that were challenging you in another season did not have the ability to dry you at the roots. So because there were still roots, there can still be fruit. Just required a new season and a new environment in order for it to grow. And so we've been in an environment for over 111 days. We've been in this kinetic prayer place, and the Father has been revealing to us some things and sharing with us some things and causing us to redefine some things. Why? Because there are some things that must be grown out of us. They must flourish now. They've got to come forth. And so he's putting us in those positions that we dreamed. He's putting us in those positions where he gave vision, where he gave clarity, where he gave understanding. And it was so clear to us that we began to run with it, but we got weary in another season because it wasn't for that season. It wasn't for that time. But now is the time, and you'll find yourself even more invigorated about everything that he's called you to than you've ever been invigorated. You'll see the restoration of your emotions, the restoration of your soul, the mind, the will, and the emotions. You'll see that now things are picking up. Why? Because now there's a shift that's getting ready to take place, and we've got to move into the position in this shift, and we can't be bogged down. We can't be emotionally damaged. We can't be depressed. We can't be oppressed. We can't be in those spaces of disbelief and unbelief. Only believe. You know, don't disbelieve, only believe, because all things are possible. What are the all things, though? Sometimes that's not defined. The all things are the things that he spoke that you didn't believe in another season. The all things are the things that he said that you thought were too big for you. You thought were too high for you. All things are possible to him that believes. What is he believing? He's believing the report of Yah. He's believing what was spoken. He's believing that prophetic utterance that was given in another season to be able to be positioned for the doing of something. We're not here just to sit around and watch things happen. We're here to make things happen. That was the purpose of our person, to be able to be conduits for the Father to speak through, to speak to, and to speak through. Y'all know I love that he's speaking to me, through me. Man, that thing does something for me. He's doing something to me to do it through me. He's saying something to me to say it through me. He's causing me to become something on the inside that can be manifested on the outside. You understand what I'm saying? I love this thing about the dream, because a lot of people don't understand that is one of the prophetic spaces that the Father uses. A dream is a prophetic space. And I share this all the time because a lot of people do not understand that the dream realm doesn't belong to anybody but Yah. You say, well, I had a nightmare. No, you did not. No, you did not. That was not a nightmare. You're thinking that the adversary got in your sleep and he began to do something with you. No. Anything that you dream is a conversation that needs to be had about whatever it is that needs to be had about. Sometimes the Father is revealing to us things that are pending or things that are attempting to come on the horizon. Sometimes you're dealing with things that are in your soulish realm. Your dream is a result of what's in your soul, in your mind, your will, and your emotions. And so now it's in a dream because the Father wants to address what's in your soul. But the dream realm doesn't belong to darkness. Never has, and it never will. Any dream that you have is a conversation of some kind. Now, sometimes the kind of dream that you're having is related to the food that you ate before you closed your eyes. Yep. Sometimes you have pizza dreams. You know, this is just based on chemical operations in the body. And now this is the manifestation of that chemical operation. That's even a conversation. You know what that's a conversation about? You probably shouldn't eat that because this is what that creates. Hello? Job said it like this in Job chapter 33. He said, Yah speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. In a dream and a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men and slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction, that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. I'm telling you, sometimes you're dealing with a soulish dream. And so what the Father will do is he'll allow that dream realm to activate in a certain way to show you something or to allow you to see something. It may seem scary to you in the dream, but it's to draw you, to withdraw you from your own purpose, or to draw you into the purpose that he has for you. That's a twofold thing. To withdraw. That's the word sewer. Okay? Which means to turn you away from something, to help you avoid something, to cause you to depart from something, right? But when we look at the prophetic, I just wanted to bring up the dream this morning, but when we look up the prophetic, we see that there was a prophetic declaration over the life of David. The prophetic conversation that was over the life of David was for him to be king. However, it didn't look like that was the road that he was on. It didn't look like he was on the fast track to the throne. Business of the soul, absolutely. Business of the heavens, business of your food. Okay, all information though. It's all y'all having a conversation. It didn't look like David was on the fast track to the throne. And oftentimes, what happens with mankind is that if it doesn't look easy, then we leave the space. And I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again. I even heard one of my apostolic brothers yesterday saying and sharing something along the line of what we were sharing about this laziness. Most people are just too lazy to walk out the purpose of their life. Now, that might sound harsh, but it's the truth. And if you can behold the reality that you've created based on your lackadaisical, your lethargy, based on your lazy position concerning what the Father has said, then you can make a correction. You know, we've been talking about the teaching of the numbering of the days, identifying the wisdom of the day. This is important. When we step into this idea of new breed being born, that means it has to leave an old environment. The new thing comes out of an old environment into the new, and it takes on a new form and a new shape, because you know when that baby is in that womb, it's kind of like in that fetal position, but when it comes out, it can kind of spread out. Now it can kind of stretch. That's why babies do a lot of stretching, because they're used to being in that one position. But the Father saying, no, when the thing is born, the positions of it change, and we can liken that unto the seasons of a thing, right? The Father gave me a word many years ago. He said there are three things that man is going to have to contend with as long as he's alive. What did the Father say? Do you believe it? And what are you going to do about it? Those three things you're going to have to contend with for the rest of your life, because Abba is always speaking. The question is not, is he speaking? The question is, are we hearing? And or what are we doing with what we are hearing? Because this is that prophetic space that the Father uses to give us a heads up of what's to come, of something that's on the horizon, of something that is pending. And I love that. I love that he says this to Israel repetitively. He says, I sent you prophets early. Why is he saying that? Because he said, don't cry to me now. What you crying for? I sent prophets before the thing happened and you killed them. Come on now. You silenced them. You changed their effectiveness. You tried to minimize their influence in the camp. You know what I mean? It's the same thing that happened when the children of Israel went to the promised place. That's why you got to be mindful who's in your environments. Because if you're not mindful who's in your environments, then the thing that the Father has seeded you with, the prophetic word of Yah that has been seeded in you for a future realization or a future actualization, it'll be stifled. Sometimes it'll be stumped out. Sometimes people will see it growing. I was on a line and a woman of God was sharing that she had this dream. And in the dream, she was sitting on this bench with this woman, and she didn't know who the woman was. She wasn't familiar in the dream, but there was something that was growing up under the bench. It was just kind of off the side, and the woman was pulling at it. And what the Holy Spirit revealed to me was that she was planted, and wherever she's planted, things begin to grow. And it's always somebody that's trying to pull at it. So what I likened it to was her spiritual growth. That there are things that are growing, that are becoming a part of her. But as those things are becoming a part of her, someone is constantly pulling at the leaves because it's a tender plant, it's young. Don't pull the leaves off of a tender plant. It needs the leaves to thrive because the leaves are what catches the sun in order to receive for the plant what is necessary to create the vitamins and the minerals. But this woman was pulling at the leaves, pulling at the plant, at the small thing, right? Because the Father always gives us things in seed form. Oh, it's fully equipped. It's fully equipped with what it needs to be, but it is in the seed form. And it's for us to cultivate and to cultivate and protect the seed. But if we don't identify that, we're just thinking, oh, he's just going to give it to me in its fullness. No, even children have grown from a seed into what they're becoming. It's a seed, but understand, in the seed is all that the plant needs to be what it is, just as it is with us. Just as it is with us. Prophet, you want to share? I'm going to share comments over here.
Praise the Lord. I was, if you would take a look at what the question I asked you for clarity on what you asked me to look up. So I want to make sure I follow the instructions well and obedient to what you asked me to look up. I
Yes,
need the
ma'am.
clarity on what you were saying because it was a little muffled on my end.
Okay, I got you. I
Praise
see
God.
that's what you were sending me in the private chat. I got you, sister. My
Yes,
apologies.
ma'am.
I didn't
No
understand.
problem.
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
harp. I'm going to put it in. You know what harp is.
Yes, okay. That way
Okay.
I can actually do what I'm requested to do. Amen.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
another thing we have to do is follow the instructions. So we do. You were talking about the dreaming,
Yeah.
and hearing. But we have to be able to hear and understand what is being said. Sometimes we take things in our human context, and
Mm,
it's not what God is saying. We have to research it, search it out. And if we don't know, we go to one who is wise or who has the gifting of interpretation of the dream. Because
yeah.
there's a lot of people don't believe they're interpreters of dreams.
Mm,
But he's provided that the same way it is an interpreter of tongue. That has not been done away with.
yes. My God. Yeah.
So I will
That's powerful.
I will tend to what my task is, and we will continue regular programming. Amen.
Back to regular programming. Now, don't work too hard on it because I want you to be still attentive. If you can just see, pull up what those dimensions are,
Amen.
and see if we can get the size of the machine or the size of the, even if we just put that on the burner for tomorrow, That's something that we need to do, because sometimes what we're looking at is people trying to reenact something. We know that that's what it is. You know, we already know that that's what it is, that they're trying to do what has already attempted to be done. But I want to see what the similarities are, since that came up on the radar.
Amen. Also, I see here they were saying I have feedback, so I'm reverbing somewhere.
Nope, you're not
So
reverting on my end.
yeah, I'm hearing. Um, I'm seeing that.
Yeah, on my end, you're clear still.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. Check your side, Prophet. Are you maybe turn the volume down, try that. But it may depend on where you are too. Sometimes a lot of different things affect the sound of things. And that thing about the frequency is so important to me. And I know, like, when I first started having those conversations, people didn't challenge me on it, but I could tell that sometimes people were a little weirded out. And Elder Vicky brought this to my attention. She said, you know, it was like when you changed from saying Jesus, and you started talking about Yeshua or Yahushua, and you started, you know, the thing about it is, you know, if people pay attention, I never am fussing at people for saying Jesus. I never fuss at people for not using the Hebrew names of the Father or the Son. I don't, because I was in that space at one time. I feel like if I just teach you what I need to teach, I don't have to give attention to that. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to say a bunch about that, because what that is what that is. And as we are studying, which is going to be another point of contention in the hearts and minds of many in the new season, you know, on the other side of our new year, which is Passover. I don't know if you're going to let me teach it before that or after that, but I know it's some stuff I got to say about some stuff, because, you know, when the Father does a thing, it's because it was on his heart, it was on his mind. And when he does a thing, he does it because he uses somebody. And that somebody was set aside for the season or the era that they were born in. We talked about that the other day too, Prophet, about identifying what you were born for by knowing what year you were born and what was going on in the decade and just previous to the decade that you're in. And then what's going on in the time, you know, in the years that you are old enough to identify what's happening in the earth. You're an answer to some things, but you got to realize that. But that's going to come from prophetic cognition. A lot of times people hear me talk about my prophetic signposts. Okay. And what I'm dealing with when I say that's a prophetic signpost for me, in other words, these are things that have been discussed with me for a long period of time. And so, like, the horse and his rider has he cast into the sea. That's a prophetic signpost for me. And you can identify by the signpost scriptures that have followed you your whole life. You can identify by those scriptures and those words that the Father is giving you. Like, he talks to me about the rainbow all the time. That's a thing with me and my generations. Like, it's not just a thing with me. My children got it. My grandchildren got it. It's a thing, you know, where that rainbow is just, it's a thing. Okay. And the thing that he said to me as a child when he began to express things about the rainbow is a promise is a promise. So that dealt with anything that he promised me, he promised it to me and he meant it. It also dealt with, listen, if I made a promise, I don't renege on it. So I'm not going to destroy. In some seasons, it could have even referred to, you know, you're going in some directions, and I promised I wouldn't destroy some things. So seed time and harvest, it could be a reminder, but it's a constant reminder. And we were talking about this the other day, Prophet Marley. She brought up the fact that that's a constant reminder that even when darkness is sharing that rainbow, it is a constant reminder of what the Father promised, no matter that you're using it out of its context. Because you guys know I say all the time, that don't belong to them. That's ours. It belongs to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a promise to the world. It is a promise to the earth. So when we're dealing with this prophetic cognition, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. It's in context, it is associated with this idea of a forecast, something being determined, something being pre-exposed, okay, about future events. So that cognition, we know, has to deal with the mental processing of that prophetic. Okay. Are you able to process the prophetic? Are you realizing the value, first of all, of that word that's been released to you? But are you able to process it? What do you do with the word of Yah? What do you do with the word when he releases it to you? First of all, do you even know that it's him speaking? Because we live in an age of the pathetic that a lot of people think is prophetic. Okay? Because darkness has definitely done a number on the identity of what sonship looks like. So now people can have, an outward appearance of something, but not have the power of it, not have the presence of it, right? Are you able to conceptualize? Are you able to have the images in your head when the Father is speaking? That's the thing. He's not, when he's speaking a thing, it's for the formation of something. So when he speaks it to your heart, it should form something in your mind, because that's the thing that he's going to go exceeding and abundantly above. So you according to what you could ask or think, there has to be something there in order for him to go exceeding, to exceed it and go abundantly above it. And these are things that we're not often taught in the industrial complex called the church or religion. Now, outside of that, you'll see a lot of people dealing with their people from their dark perspectives, right? They're taking a thing that is divine and they're twisting it. They're utilizing the principles of the thing, but it's for the worship of another God, or the worship of it is toward another God, even including themselves as their God. You understand what I'm saying? But they take the principles of the things that we're communicating. And so people are feeling some kind of way. Oh, that's darkness. Oh, that's wicked. It is darkness. But the thing that makes it darkness is not necessarily everything that they're doing, but who they're doing it on the behalf of, or what the spirit of the doing is actually what the biggest deal is. So when I talk about frequency, a lot of times people kind of shrug it, and I'm like, well, how do you think things are created? How do you think they exist? They have a resonant or resonating frequency that causes their existence. This is what the Father breathed into man. And even in that breath that he breathed into man was this ability for prophetic cognition, the ability to process by sight, spiritual sight, and process by sound, the hearing of a thing, and create the image of a thing to wrap one's head around it. Now, the opposite of that is this precognitive dissociation, which we talked about a little bit yesterday, right? And one of the things that the Father was talking to me about before I got on was what does it look like a person is not operable in their mental space, in the cognitive space? What does that look like? I began to ask, well, what does that look like? He began to talk about motor function being, not operable. And we know motor function means how you move. Okay. So those things result in weakness or paralysis or loss of fine motor skills in those specific parts. You might have severe damage to the brainstem, which can also lead to complete paralysis or loss of basic reflexes that are necessary for survival. When I'm talking to you about this from a natural perspective, I want you to identify this spiritually. When you are damaged in the brain area, in the mind, in the mental, in the cognitive house, when you're damaged there, it can have a profound and often devastating effect on the abilities, on what you're capable of. And we know this because I shared this and I'll share it again. I remember on the other side of my first intimate relationship with my handler. I call my ex-husband's handlers. I didn't remember I could dance. There was such a profound trauma that cognitively I forgot the ability that I had physically in an area. And so we saw yesterday that there are different areas of the brain, right? And so when you're dealing with a brain that ceases working and it being devastating on the cognition and the physicality of the person. It depends on what part of the brain is affected and to what extent it's affected, right? So I got a list of general outcomes, and motor function was at the top of that. The loss of basic reflexes that are necessary for survival. Just think about that for a minute. When the word talks about have the mind of Yah, you know, let this mind be in you that was also in the Mashiach. Well, what mind did he have? He had his father's mind. Well, when you are ceasing to allow your spiritual cognition to function, your spiritual psyche to function properly, when you're not vibrating at the divine frequency level of Yah, then you're subject to paralysis. You're not moved. When you hear a thing, you're paralyzed by it instead of trying to identify what is it that you want me to do about what I'm hearing, Father, and when is the time for this. You're paralyzed. You're not able to move. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the response. The reflex deals with the response. You ever seen something getting ready to fall off the table? That's a prophetic place too, because that's one of those places. I'm going to come back to this for a minute. I'm coming back to what I was talking about, but I got to go to this because this is one of those areas where people don't understand. The Father starts with small things, right? I remember as a child, I would see certain things happen before they happen. If you're prophetic, you understand this. If you have prophetic nature, because all sons of Yah have prophetic nature, I'm not just dealing with the office of the prophet. I'm dealing with the prophetic nature right now. But as a prophetic son, right, I would see things happen before they happen. Like if it was a glass on the table, it could have been in the middle of the table, but I saw something transpire that it wound up on the edge of the table, falling to the floor. And I would say, hey, move that glass. And people be like, why? It's in the middle of the table. I understand. Just move it. And when they wouldn't move it, it would wind up on the floor, glass broken, all of that, right? But the Father uses these small things to begin to train us in prophetic acumen. And when you're able to grasp or cognitively identify, you know, what's being done, then you start positioning yourself to have a quicker response. Your reflex, your spiritual reflex is a lot faster. So that damage, depending on the part of the brain, if it is a part that deals with the motor function, then there can be a paralysis there or a loss of fine motor skills or a basic reflex that's necessary for you to survive. You don't have it. Can I tell you something? The prophetic word is necessary for your survival. This is how David was able to survive the wilderness and the cave. This is how David was able to survive the attacks of Shaul. You understand what I'm saying? This is how he was able to understand what to do, because most people, especially industrial complex people, they teach people to stay in a place where Saul is trying to kill them. I've never heard such stupidity in all my life. Do you know how many prophets I know personally that have been with me in different spaces and just been excited to be in this space, but are not here, but are still running into Saul's house under the different under different faces, because it's something in them is attracted to Saul. They try to come here to get healed, to run into another house of Saul. And I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? Who don't want to be able to operate prophetically and use their prophetic gifting to do what the Father is calling them to do without constantly being under duress, without constantly. Do you know that David did not perpetually run? At some point, he was able to be seated. But for the season of his running, he had to outlive that adversary that was against him in order to get in the space that he was anointed for. But I'm saying to these prophets, I'm looking at them and they're like, ooh, apostle, they did something. And I say, I don't understand. I don't understand y'all. I don't understand you guys. They don't understand the authority of their gift. They don't understand the value of their gift. They do not understand the time in which they've been placed in and the understanding of the need to redeem the time because the days are evil. But they just keep running into Saul's house. Just run into Saul's house. Just as long as it sound good enough, it look good enough, because they're looking on the outside. I'm like, well, Apostle, I want to connect to Apostle, but she ain't got no building. She ain't got no place for me to be seen. No, you could be on the platform. You can share. We can grow together here because the Father's doing something different. But none of those prophets are in position. But as soon as all the things that begin to happen, you watch and see if I tell you, don't they show up like, you know what, Apostle, I've been thinking. I know you have. I bet you have. Because now you're seeing something more than what you were seeing before. The word wasn't enough. Can I tell you something? Put this in the chat. The word is enough. The word of Yah is enough. David's family, when they identified where he was, which was just outside of Bethlehem, they said, listen, we're going where he is because, first of all, we are in a position where we are in a vulnerable space. Because you know what happens when a king is supposed to ascend to the throne? Everything connected to that thing got to die so that there are no heirs. But they got problems of their own. They're in debt. They got all kinds of issues. The word is enough. When you get the word of Yah and you can wrap your spiritual mind around it to begin to form the images that he's spoken to you, you hold on to that thing until it comes to life. You'll hold on to it. And you'll realize in the season that it's supposed to be born, you'll realize it because internally something begins to happen to you that says it's the time. It now is the time. But what happens with people is this precognitive dissociation. What happens in precognitive dissociation? Blessings, Prophet Mika. And precognitive dissociation, and this is something that the Father gave me. I had never seen it anywhere. I've never heard of it. I said, what are we talking about? He said, it's a field of study that you have to declare. You got to build this out. This is necessary. Why? Because in the field of psychology, which is a field that I absolutely love, because anything that has to do with the mind, the brain, the neural pathways, all of that stuff, which also are associated with the heart, I am really interested in that. The blood, the vessels, I'm very interested in that because I'm anointed for that area. You say, well, why you didn't get a degree in it? Because I wasn't called to do that way. It just wasn't. And I even, in this season of my life, people were kind of mentioning things to me because I think what happens with people is they feel like, well, you're pretty smart. You need some degrees to back what it is you do. And I'm not saying that might not be the case for some things that people do. Don't quote me on that, on saying, don't put me in that posture of having said that. But what I will say to you is that when you're anointed to do something, it doesn't matter how many degrees somebody else has, you'll go beyond them in your field of study. You'll create situations that they've never thought of. And they have the degree. But what they got a degree in was the thing that was given to them to learn. They're not open for anything extra because they're only working with what was handed to them by a system that had the intention of keeping them from having their own thoughts about things. I said I wasn't going to go into that today. When you really understand the purpose of why the school system was initiated and what its premise was, what it was founded upon, and who founded it, then you'll see things a whole lot different. Because anybody with a little bit of sense and a little bit of want to can get a degree. You know why? Because all they got to do is learn the material and be able to be tested on the material that's given to them based on what they read. See, my problem was I was disputing what was written. Do you hear what I'm saying? In my, which class was this? Was this psychology? Now it's eluding me. Or was it it was my psychology class. In my psychology class, I was disputing what was written in the book. And so how I wrote my papers, how I did what I did, it was founded upon things, and it wasn't just founded upon the Bible, but I had ideas about things based on what the Father had spoken to me. And so now I'm doing the research to kind of back my ideas and say, well, they haven't gone as far as I've gone, but these are some things that are foundational principles, and this is what I'm building on. I'm using this to build on. Now, oh no, we gave you what we want you to build on. Oh, well, listen. So you're going to give me a C or a D, and I'm supposed to accept that or respect that? I picked up my bags. I said, I'm out. Miss Lee, I'm out of here. You don't get a chance to grade my mind because you want me to have the mind of these books. And I'm telling you that some of this stuff is just pure lies. These things are not even so. How somebody that's never had children trying to tell people how to raise children? I'm confused. Dr. Spock is not an expert on child rearing. Dr. Spock is a tool to give you another idea about how to rear your children because it goes against what the scripture says. So listen, I understand degrees, great. That's wonderful. That's all well and good. But I know that the billionaires that are running the world don't have college degrees. I'm just telling you. They made you go through that process because it prolongs your ability to have ideas and concepts and bring them to the marketplace. Okay? While they're doing what they're doing without their college education, just having a word, we're talking about this prophetic, and prophetic doesn't just mean divine, it could be diabolic as well. But what makes it diabolic is the fact that they heard something and they twisted it. We were talking about Bishop Carlton. I grew up watching him. I grew up watching those things. I was in another space at that time in my life because I'm musical. It was attractive to me. But what I do realize about this situation is this, that the Father was giving him something that had not been heard or seen. However, based on the things that he got into in his life, based on the positions that he took in his life because of the exposure and the access that he had to everything, now the thing that the Father was giving him that was supposed to be a turning point in the church for them to get into the kingdom now became his platform for him to say, I can live like I want to live, be what I want to be, with who I want to be it with, and it's all good. And matter of fact, it's inclusion, Everything's about inclusion and all of these other things. Why? Because I have a position, and so I'm using what the Father has prophetically spoken to me, and I don't see it his way. I'm seeing it my way, and I'm taking it down a road. You understand what I'm saying? So we wind up in a place where we're saying something like, everybody's already saved. Okay, there is a specific thing. The Mashiach's death was for all mankind. He paid the debt of all men. But if you do not accept the work that he did, you are not going to be a recipient of the debt that was paid because you're going to live a life like you owe a debt or like you got to work to pay a debt. Okay? So there were some things that have been given to sons throughout generations, and this is what the Father does all the time. When he wants to say a thing, he's saying it because he wants to do a thing, and he's not going to do it himself because that's why he put man in the earth. Like, well, why he just don't do it? He is going to do it, but he's going to do it through those that he has assigned to do the work. He didn't just call his chosen people out of Egypt. Just follow the voice. Follow what I'm saying. Follow me out of. No, he sent a deliverer. And that deliverer was born in the age that their captivity existed. And his life was spared. And even he was sent into the house to learn from the house and to learn of the house, but brought out of it because he began to realize his connection to the people. And he chose that connection over the connection of darkness. And now he's killing this Egyptian because he's like, why you hit my brother? why you do that? Now something in him is rising because now it's remember what I'm telling you, when there's a prophetic word over your life, when you are prophetically formed, then in the day of your rising, something happens, something shifts. You understand what I'm saying? Something begins to shift. So the precognitive dissociation, I'm so hardly trying to get into this, but the Father keeps taking me down these other spaces to clarify some things. Okay, so look at this. Precognitive dissociation, meaning this is a relationship place, because what the Father does with this is he wants to bring mankind into the space where they understand that there's a loving God that's concerned about them and has a defined purpose for them. So this is why I have to explore this field of study, because precognitive dissociation is not something that you're going to see in any books. It's not. Okay. But I want you to understand that it typically refers to the ability to perceive something, or to what people would consider prediction. But we know that sons don't predict. Okay. We don't deal in the prediction of things. We deal in the realization of some things, because you're going to have the knowledge. It's a pre-knowledge of a thing. It's a pre-information of a thing. It's a forecasting of something. It's a foreknowing of something. Okay. And so in that foreknowing, which a lot of times is often associated with paranormal and supernatural phenomenon in the space of darkness, this is how they identify that. So why is this so important, though? Why is this field of study very important? Because they're operating in this space of the paranormal and supernatural phenomenon, because they're dealing with this ability to predict something, but they don't understand it's a forecast. And if you're predicting it, you're thinking, oh, it could be or it could not be. But see, when the Father speaks a thing, it is what he says it is. But now there are other things that speak, other deities and other entities that speak. So now you have to identify where this information is coming from. So why we have to infuse the earth with this concept is because people now have to have the light turned on to know that there are other voices. Remember, we talked about this with Abraham. I'm not going to go too far into it, but a lot of people, see that and they get stuck on the Father told him to kill his son. No, the word there that says God meant deities. So there were other voices, but you got to remember where he came from. The reason why he's the father of faith is, first of all, because he says to the servants, listen, me and the boy are going over yonder, but we'll be back. That says to me that he had in his mind that if this is God talking to me, if this is Yah talking to me to kill my son, then I know he's going to bring him back to life. But there's something else that he said when he got to the space and he ties the boy up and he puts him on the logs and he's creating this thing and getting ready to, lift up his knife to slay the boy. He said before this, because the boy asked him, Father, okay, we got all the stuff to build this situation, but where is the sacrifice? And Abraham says the Father will provide a lamb. You understand what I'm saying? He wasn't just talking about in that season. He was prophesying for seasons to come. So when we see that, if we can wrap our head around, if we can prophetically identify that, what he's speaking about, that we can see that this thing happened. So now we begin to see patterns and frameworks for things, so that anything the Father begins to speak to us, we can identify, okay, first of all, we know we're going to be aware, because we're going to be aware that it's his voice speaking to us, first of all. Secondarily, when he speaks, we're going to find the value in his voice. And then we're going to begin to search out what the timing is of the thing that he's talking about. So here we go. Dissociation refers to this disconnection or separation from the normal sense of self or reality. Okay, so the Father gives a reality prophetically, but dissociation says that I separate myself from that reality. I don't even make that my reality. I don't make it a thing. I don't make it real. You understand what I'm saying? So there is this precognition that happens where I'm able to foresee something. I am seeing something prophetically that hasn't happened yet. Okay, but I disassociate myself, and then when I'm in a space, this is where that term deja vu comes from. We're going to explore that. That deja vu. They say, oh, I've been here before. Deja vu. I've been here before. I've seen this before. Right. But what happens with people that are not able to identify with this prophetic cognition, they are dissociating from what the Father has revealed or from what he said. And so therefore they don't get those results. This dissociation refers to the disconnection or the separation of one's thoughts. Also, it leads to spiritual schizophrenia, but that's a whole nother situation, because the Father's saying something or he's revealing something in an environment, but because I've been given something, it goes back to that human intellect to that book knowledge, to that cube knowledge. Because I'm so systemically tied to something, I don't have my own thoughts. I'm not able to forecast things. I'm not able to see it from the perspective that the Father's given it. So I relate everything he says to whatever the system has already given me. You understand what I'm saying?
Apostle.
Yes, ma'am.
Just when as you're speaking, it is the reversal of the Exodus from Egypt.
Yes.
It is a reversal through the capacity of the mind, the thought processes, and the receiving
Yes.
of what YAHS. If they can intercept and create a gulf the same way Yah created a gulf in the Red Sea,
Mm-hmm.
and have a great exodus from Yah
That's good.
back to bondage, back to slavery, back to the dark side of things.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
That is what he's doing. And he's using multiple ways
My
of
God.
that, even down to the way we see, think, and our education of things,
Yes.
because it sets up an infrastructure of disbelief or
Yes.
limited belief,
Mm-hmm.
and also a rebellion or disobedience
Yeah.
through ignorance,
But
because
even
now we're
but look at this though.
educated
But look
in
at
the
this though.
manner in which
Yeah, but look at this though. Even though I see you showing to me.
yeah, because we don't have we can't rationalize or phantom the truth,
That's it.
because we have been over inundated, ingraded, and there have been a
That's an
engrafting.
indoctrination.
Yeah,
Indoctrination
and
is what
indoctrination, but and engrafting, because there's a type of engrafting with that. Because over time, as you study, you grow with it.
yeah.
The same
Yeah.
as the wheat and the tare. But some
Yeah.
people have a hard time having the tare separated from the
Mm,
wheat. They don't like
yes.
when the wind blows.
Mm. Some of the wheat dies because it's entangled so tough that the
That's
life
true.
of the plant is taken, because that tear is actually taking from the ground the nutrients or the nurturing that the wheat needed. So if you get enough
Yes.
tear in the area, it'll kill that batch of wheat because the tear is over inundated. It's overrunning the area, right? That's powerful, Prophet. I love that. I'm
Hmm.
going to listen to what you just said again, because that is absolutely amazing. Okay. We're getting ready to end right now, but we'll be back in the morning again. And Prophet, I hope you save these stats that you showed me, so we can go over that tonight. But listen, this is important that we understand this, because when we're talking about that unity, I want you to just think about this for a moment, because I want to show you prophetically what the Father is doing in this moment with the sons. He's bringing sons together that are able to prophetically identify what he's saying, having the cognition, the divine cognition to handle what he's releasing. They're not dissociating the word that he's releasing. They're not operating under that teaching, under that learning, under that rigid, knowledge, cube knowledge. They actually are coming together to be able to receive what the Father is saying and what he's doing in this season. Imagine 500 having the same prophetic direction from Yah in one space. That's Acts chapter 2, but we'll see you tomorrow. I want you to look at that. Till tomorrow, the body's not a me thing, it's a we thing. We love you. Peace.
Shalom, shalom.